had to take it weird. Sorry.
All of us get child support now from Bobby.
Speaking of child support, hello everybody, and welcome to the TheFreeRotation podcast. I'm leaving that part in. That was funny.
No, that's good. That's good.
And we are back with part 2 of our origin tales regarding fairy tales. Get it? Origin tales, fairy tales. Ah, yay, we did it. Okay. Anyways, if you didn't listen to part 1, I don't know why you're listening to part 2 without listening to part 1.
You can listen to part 2 without listening to part 1.
Spoiler alert, there's like the end of part 2 has part 1's what? Never mind. Anyways, who wants to tell the first story?
Do you want me to do it? Because I'm the mouth-breathing idiot of the group.
Sure.
Sweet.
Are you telling the simple stories today?
Yeah, it's the fucking 3 little pigs. How simple can you get?
All right. So today we are joined by all of the podcast hosts. So now Bobby's going to tell his very special story about the 3 little pigs. So Bobby, take it away.
So once upon a time, there was an old mother pig who had 3 little pigs and not enough food to feed them. I've noticed this. There's a lot of trends in these fairy tales where there's starvation. And when they were old enough, and she, the government didn't send her a check every month for having a bunch of kids, she said, "Sent them out because y'all eating all my food." The first little pig was very fucking lazy. Didn't want to work at all, so he built a house out of straw. What a dumbass. Second one, he wasn't lazy per se, but he also wasn't a hard worker. He's kind of like me. He's like, built a house out of sticks. Third one, smart one, built a house out of bricks.
Okay.
I like this. I like that guy. I like this guy where he's going. Then, wolf passes by. He's like, "I'm kind of hungry. I want some bacon." So, he sees the first pig in the straw house. He's like, "Hey, let me in. I'm going to fuck up your house." And the kid's like, "No." So he blows it down, eats the pig. So I say this, there are some where the 2 pigs run away.
Yeah.
But nah.
We're going with the dark version.
Going for the dark
We're the
version.
adults in this.
Yeah, he became fatback for that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he made it with some good pork skin.
Yeah.
Second one, house out of sticks.
Did the wolf want some pork belly?
Oh, yeah. But it took a little more effort because, sticks versus straw. So, it took him like 3 huff and a puffs to blow it down.
Oh, so he's a tornado.
Pretty much. He's a force of nature. And the third one with the bricks, nah, wolf's not blowing that shit down. So the wolf sees a chimney. He's like, "I'm going to sneak in that chimney." Third pig's smart. He's like, "I'm going to put a boiling cauldron underneath." Wolf jumps down, tries to get in, falls in boiling water. That pig, it's a nice wolf stew at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, flavored with his brothers.
Yeah, I was like, now that piggy's eating his kinfolk.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cannibalism.
Oh, yeah, that's awkward.
There was some interesting things about this story. And now I made it really simple. But in some of the illustrated versions, the pigs, the first 2 pigs, the ones that make a house out of straw and sticks, yeah, they're yellow and brown.
Oh.
Yeah, in some of the illustrated versions.
Oh.
Yeah. And did you know who built houses out of sticks and straw?
White pigs?
People in Asia and in Africa.
Bamboo and thatch.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant... Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those pigs also have to be considered lazy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's supposed to be some metaphor for other countries. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that takes a...
Yeah.
So the brick house pigs are the
European.
Caucasian?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
You scandalous hussies, and we talk about this.
No, and the reason I noticed it was when I was not when I was a kid. Well, I read it when I was a kid, but my mom had a bunch of the old fairy tales like in the picture form, and, like from like the 50s, and I went back and looked at it, and I was like, "Oh fuck," because people were saying about it online, like, "Nah, this is bullshit." I was like, "No, first pig's fucking yellow, and the second one's brown." Yeah. Oh, I'm uncomfortable.
And like, even if they run to the others for protection, they're still running to the Caucasian for protection.
Yep.
So no matter how the story goes, it's shitty.
Yep. Because the brothers are in debt to the big European pig.
Yeah.
I just thought it was supposed to be a metaphor for like being smart and working hard. You don't get your stuff taken.
Yeah, that's the base layer, but it depends on the version. Because sometimes you get the illustrated version where they're
but
not
even
all.
then, if the pig is Caucasian, he's the worker.
Oh.
And the smarter one.
Taking care of the...
Now, there are some versions where instead of being pigs, they're fae. I looked that up.
Oh,
yeah, it's
interesting.
even older versions from way back before like Grimsdale. It was like, oh, it's a little fae. Like, that's interesting. No racial undertones in that.
Well, yeah, just fairies are being like what the fairies are doing instead of the wolf eating them.
And there's a version from North Carolina where the wolf at one point dresses up as a farmer, And the pigs don't let him in, so he gets Satan to help him.
Holy shit.
That takes a whole new southern
He
undertone.
summoned Satan to burn down the fucking house.
So how did the last little pig keep Satan and Wolf out? Was he a Christian?
He doesn't, because he didn't pray.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it takes a whole, like, fucking religious undertone with that one.
It's like the church really has to ruin all the good stuff.
But they say, like, satanic panic. I'm worried about the Christians. Like, they're going to kill us all.
I just think it's funny that they're like,
here in the morning.
Let's making sure, like, oh yeah, Lil Nas X goes
just
flying
comes
by.
down the chimney on the pole and just keeps going.
Y'all saw they made a D&D character from Montero, right?
Yes.
It's fucking great. I told my DM putting this in the fucking campaign.
Oh, I would.
But yeah, it's the three little pigs. Some little racial undertones there.
That is.
I just love that it's like racial undertones and also Satan. Like that's really, really what you need to understand is like in the South.
Doesn't that go hand in hand?
It's
Christianity
really
and
true.
racism.
It's a story that can really fit any mold.
Yeah.
True, you could just kind of shove it in somewhere and it. That's how it goes.
Stereotypical mold.
Becky, it's a story, not a dildo.
And are you okay? Are you okay?
I made Angie spit her coffee out 3 times today. I'm feeling very successful right now.
It's a good day.
It came out my nose.
Ooh.
Hey, you have to tell the next story though.
And all I can smell is coffee.
It's a delicious smell.
Yeah. Okay, so I picked Little Red Riding Hood. And the reason I had titled our episode week before last, Fairy Tales and Folklore, is because Little Red Riding Hood is actually folklore. It's a story that's in multiple civilizations. Going as far back as the 10th century. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty far.
That's old.
Yeah, so in Italy, you have like the false grandmother stereotype. She's also called Little Red Cap, Red Riding Hood. But that's not even where it started there. Nene.
Did you just say nay?
Nene.
Did you whip it before you?
We say nene.
Okay.
Nene. So back in the Roman and Greek civilizations, Greek had where I really have to write neater. I cannot read this.
This is why I type.
She actually wrote it in Greek, so
Oh,
Yeah.
fuck.
She wrote it in like Greek-ish.
it's just a bunch of triangles.
It's
and
like and then there's like one American word that's like
Omicron, Alpha,
like
blah, blah.
tree is in English though.
And it's a Greek name, so I have no idea. Okay, Paul Saviet. That's what Pav Saviet.
Sure.
We're gonna call him Pavs. So
Like
this girl is offered to a malevolent spirit and dressed as the malevolent spirit is dressed as a wolf. And when the wolf would take her, when the people would offer, he would just rape her and like give her back.
Nice. Okay.
So there's a Greek boxer named Eurythmus, and he kills the spirit and he marries the girl. And in the Roman culture, Horace talks of a male child who's rescued from the belly of an ogress in similar fashion. Sorry, ogress is like, there's a distinct space. I'm like, ogress.
Is an ogre? Is it like an ogre or like a female ogre?
Ogress is a female ogre.
Ogress, yeah.
Ah, cool.
But is this the earliest tales? No. We're going back to Norse times.
Nay.
Nene, says we. We say nene. So, in the Norse tale, the dialogue is very similar because, do y'all remember that do y'all know, like, the Norse tales and the Norse gods?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
you know, like, the big fight is between the Norse gods and the giants.
Yes.
Well, do you remember, to appease the giants, the king giant, he wanted to marry Freya, and they're like, fine, you can marry Freya. And so Thor was like, you know what? I'm going to dress up as Freya, and I'm going to marry the giant. So Loki goes, to stand in, like, with the Thor Freya, and they're eating, like, their wedding dinner, and the giant's like, you're eating kind of very unwomanly. And Loki's like, oh, because they're so excited to, eat with you. You remember, like, oh, Grandma, what big eyes you have. And he's like, oh, your facial features are very big. Oh, it's just to see you better on the wedding night. So you've got that very, very similar dialogue. It's also very similar to when the wolf is slain. Like at Ragnarok, when the wolf pops up.
Fenrir.
Yeah.
Sure. Fuck. I don't know.
Oh.
I know way too much about Norse mythology.
What a large penis you have there, Freya.
Is the
Did you
Norse
just assume my gender?
is the Norse tale the first? Oh, say nay. We're going back even further to the North African tribes. And this one, even though it's some of the oldest, it's the one closest to what we have because, and this one just amuses shit out of me. There's a granddaughter going to see her grandfather, and he's like, when you get here, knock on the door. And I think there was like there was a little rhyme she had to say, like, grandfather, it's cold outside, they're gonna eat me if you don't fucking open the door. Like, it's kind of a poem like that. So she gets there and she knocks on the door, and she can't remember the poem, and the grandfather's like, sorry. She's like, grandfather, there's monsters out here, and he's like, I know that. That's why your little bitch ass
can't remember the fucking
can't
poem.
Repeat it. So, it also at the same time, the Russians had like Parker and the Wolf, and Peter and the Wolf, Peter. It was Peter. It's Peter.
Piotr.
Peter.
Yeah. And then we have whatever that word is. Oh.
For those at home that can't see this, we also can't see what word it is.
So it's stories from the Bible where you had the same type of thing, where Saint Margaret was swallowed by the dragon, and Jonah and the whale, the same premise of somebody innocent being swallowed by something monstrous. The earliest French tales are either a wolf or a bisou, which is a werewolf. Oh. And so, like, this runs through history, and it's pretty much the same thing. So, in this one, though, in the French one, the wolf leaves the grandmother's flesh for the girl to cannibalize.
Oh, shit.
What a gentleman.
Okay, so in the very first, like, tales is a Little Red Riding Hood as we know it. So what we know is Little Red Riding Hood skipping through the forest with her basket and her little red hood. And she, gets to the grandma's house, and, in some of the nicer tales, the wolf has just locked grandma in the closet. Like, he's laying in wait for Red Riding Hood. Some of them, he's eating her. And Red Riding Hood, she catches on pretty quick. She's like, Grandma, what big eyes you have. What big teeth. And then she runs for help and gets woodcutter, and they cut Grandma out. But essentially, they save her, but what do we say?
Not today.
Nay, this is not how the story goes. So the wolf, he's been stalking Little Red Riding Hood. And he hears her conversation with the woodcutter where she's like, hey, I'm going to go visit my grandmother. She's in a sickly way. And the wolf wants Little Red Riding Hood. Or Little Golden Hood. Some of the French tales, she has a golden hood. And he goes and he rushes to Grandma's house and he eats her. And she's bony. I mean, she's not a full meal. And he gets in bed and he waits. After putting what's left of Grandma on as a stew for Little Red Riding Hood. So Little Red Riding Hood gets there with her basket and he's like, hey, Grandma's not feeling so like, go ahead and get you some stew. And Little Red Riding Hood eats it. And then he's like, you know what? You got stew on your clothes. You should probably take them off, throw them into the fire. No. So Little Red Riding Hood gets undressed and throws her clothes on the fire. And he's like, come get in bed with Grandma.
Oh, my God.
I'm out. Hot pass.
So she gets in bed, and that's when, she feels his
penis.
So Little Red Riding Hood finally, after all this, I'm naked. I feel like I've never eaten this meat before in my life. In some stories, she catches on to it. And she's like, and he's like, I'm going to rape you now. She's like, wait, I have to take shit. So I'm either going to do it on the bed when you do this. I don't know why all my stuff involves shit. She's like, I'm either going to do it in the bed because I'm a virgin, it's going to hurt. I'm going to shit myself. Or just let me go use the outhouse. So the wolf is like, you know what? I don't want to be shit on. I'm not into that.
How about we don't poop the bed?
Yeah. So he ties a rope around her, and he attaches it to a bucket, and he can hear the bucket as she walks. Well, she goes outside, and she takes figures a way to slip the bucket, and she runs away from him. And some of them, she comes to a river, and there's this... sometimes she gets across by herself. Sometimes there's a laundress who helps her across. And she throws a sheet across, and Red Riding Hood takes it over. And then as the wolf is coming by, he drowns because they snatch it out from under him.
Nice.
And the wolf, nothing ever happens to him.
That's
Say
just
that
the
again.
end? He just... Oh.
Yeah.
Say that again so that can take the bang out.
And some of them, like the laundress is on the other side of the river and helps her across with some bed sheets tied together. And as the wolf goes to follow, they snatch it out and he drowns. But usually, in most of the tales, she gets across the river, but she's rejected by society because she shows up naked and,
oh my God.
Hate her fucking grandma.
And the wolf, nothing ever really happens to him. In like one of the stories, I think it's Golden Hood in the French version, as she's lying naked and the wolf has his way and she's traumatized, the woodcutter comes in and kills the wolf and then marries the girl, the 10-year-old girl, to save her from society, judging her. Sometimes there's a small boy that helps her on the other side, but usually she gets away, but she's generally rejected. In the Taiwanese version, it's pretty much the exact same story, except it's called Grand Aunt Tiger. So the girl gets to her uncle's house or her grand aunt's house, and she doesn't recognize the voice of her aunt. And she's basically like, hey, your voice is really deep. Oh, I got a cold. Your hands are really coarse. Oh, well, Grandma hadn't used lotion. So they come inside, and it's her and her sister, and the grandma, the grand aunt suddenly, kidnaps her, eat it. So it's another cannibalism thing. And then the girl comes up with an idea to go outside, and it's the same story. She gets a rope tied to her leg, slips the rope, and she climbs up a tree. Well, the grand aunt chases, and the girl is like, hey, since you're so hungry, I'll let you eat me, but I'm going to throw this apple down and feed you so you're not hungry while you're cooking me. And Grand Aunt Tiger's like, oh, that's a fucking fantastic idea. I mean, if you...
Free apples, bro.
Yeah, if you'll do that for me. Yeah. And then somehow she has a hot boiling bucket of water up there.
Sure.
And she pours it down the Grand Aunt Tiger's throat and kills her.
Asians carry hot buckets of water with them all the time.
Oh, you're right, Bob. Yeah. You're right.
Climbing trees, after kidnapping and forced cannibalism, just boiling water everywhere.
So, it's just another allegory for working hard.
Well, the old stories have the shared kind of rape and cannibalism, and then the string tied with the bucket, and then they get away. And there's always water that helps them kill the thing chasing them. And also in the Norse, some people have said that the red hood is like the sun, the dawn, and the wolf skull swallows at Ragnarok. So I thought that was interesting. So the theme is that if you think about it, it's a tale of admonishment towards women. If you're out by yourself, you're prey. You're going to be captured, raped, eaten, and we're going to reject you because it was obviously your fault.
Well, also, it seems like every one of these broads is real dumb because they don't recognize that this other person isn't their grand aunt, grandma, whatever. Oh, grandma, what large fucking woolly ears you have.
Yeah, you've got huge teeth and eyes, but I'll eat your stew.
Also, you look nothing like the person I know.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, back in the day, women weren't fucking viewed as intelligent or anything. So obviously,
that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. All these stories, all the women are dumb. And because they went out by themselves, bad shit happened.
Yeah. And then there's a thing that it's the red represents a sexual awakening women.
I was about to say that's what I think it mostly.
Her period, and the wolf represents lust. So if she follows her lust, she's gonna be in a world of hurt, cannibalization, having sex, being raped, being rejected by society.
All the worst things that they could come up with back
then. Yeah. So there's been a couple of things, a lot of literature, movies, and stuff. So one of the interesting things, and I don't know if you guys have seen the new Teen Wolf, but Scott McCall, when he's bitten in this show, he's wearing a red hood. So I always thought that was interesting.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Company of Wolves by Angela Cartorin. And the one's called The Bloody Chamber. And she writes really dark fairy tales. And then there's one called Wolf Moon, the Little Red. And it's about a traumatized child who runs away from home. She's abused, runs away from home. And she runs into this basically dom. And they enter a BDSM relationship. And he's a hunter. So, and then there's an anime called Tokyo Akazukin, which is Little Red Riding Hood. I haven't seen it, but... Have
you watched Hoodwinked?
I haven't watched Hoodwinked.
Hoodwinked is awesome. It's a really good animated movie. It turns the whole thing with the grandma into a murder mystery thing.
Oh, that's cool.
It's fucking dope. It's got a good cast.
And then there's darker and darker fairy tales, and it takes the... These are told from the story about what happened to her after she escaped. It goes more into that, and I'm pretty sure I've read darker and dark fairy tales because I've heard all of these dark versions. And I don't remember from where. I'm I either had a really fucked up childhood or I've read a book.
Angie.
One of the two.
Angie, are you Little Red Riding Hood grown up?
Maybe.
Oh, fuck. And Becky's the wolf.
Hey, I can't do that.
No, you should still go rar.
Meow.
That's not a terrifying
Bark,
wolf.
bark. Ow. Ow, 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 ow.
I might run from that. Run, it's here.
Yeah, if you got like, hey, Grandma, what big teeth do you have? Ow, ow. Okay, peace, bye.
You're right, Awa, you're right. But yeah, I always enjoy those different ones. And sometimes the guy that's in the woods, the
Woodcutter.
yeah, he's not. Usually he helps her, but in one of them he actually helps the wolf.
Wow, what a dick.
Like he shows up at the cabin and after she's raped and stuff, and he's like, "Hey, wolf, you mind if I get some of your leftovers?"
Jesus,
I'm out.
And then one time he shows up, and because this has happened to her, he kills her to help her save face. And like that one time he married her.
what a gentleman.
But I did appreciate the hey, I gotta take a shit.
That's a good.
I know.
Either I'm gonna.
I mean,
defecate in the
that's
bed.
life in general. Like, ooh, I don't know
Yeah.
if you want to go be down there because I'm about
The
to
stew
go.
didn't set right.
Yeah. I'm always curious though, like why are the strings tied to her? Because it's always the same thing.
It's a BDSM thing.
He may have one end of it too, so that if she tries to run,
Yeah, like they feel the thing.
yeah.
Oh,
but
yeah,
he can
because
hear the bucket.
in one of them, like she ties it to a bucket and kind of rolls it lightly.
Yeah, so it feels like she's walking.
Yeah. And I've always wondered what that was. Like, are you chained to your lust and you got to break free of your... It's spoiling her.
In a funny turn of events, I too have a folk tale that turned into a fairy tale that's also a folk tale, and that's Cinderella.
Ooh.
Cinderella.
Night and day, it's Cinderella.
So I thought, there's probably only 2 versions of the story out there, plus the very, very perfect version but with Drew Barrymore in it called Ever After. That's my favorite.
Never watched it.
Oh my
Love
God,
it.
I love it. It's so good. But it turns out that the story of Cinderella, or the little Cinder Girl, has been around for a long time. Like, we're talking 7 BC.
Oh, fuck.
So the first story, like the first instance of the story was Rhodopis. I don't know how to pronounce the Greek word, whatever. But basically, in the original story, it was about and most of them are simplification stories.
Yeah.
So it's about a woman who's a beautiful slave, and she's bathing in the river, and a bird swoops down, takes her sandal, and flies to Egypt, where the king it drops it in the king of Egypt's lap. And what he decides is that, hey, this shoe is so unique and beautiful, I want to find the woman and marry her. So he travels out through the land until he finds the owner of the slipper and marries the slave woman.
First foot fetish in history.
It's true.
Only if you...
You know he was fucking sniffing that fucking sandal the whole goddamn time.
He's like, oh, this is such a unique looking sandal.
Oh, I need to see the crusty feet it came in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they didn't have
It's
lotion back then.
It's also a slave girl in Greece.
Yeah. So
They always went barefoot.
I mean, if you worked in an
Right?
olive field, you'd picking olives and...
Yeah.
but it was very unique and interesting looking is what it was. So he went and found the woman and married her.
Sounds like a little horse shit to me.
Probably. But on top of that, there's stories throughout history. There's the Chinese version where a woman is... this story is a little bit more vague, but basically, like, her mother dies, and she speaks to her mother, who's basically her fairy godmother, in the form of a fish. And, like, they end up... she ends up marrying a prince as well and all that stuff. So there's simple
Goddamn
versions.
Chinese.
Man, I'm just saying. But there's simple versions of these stories throughout history. But I'm going to focus on the 2 European versions that most people, either the lesser known version by Grimm Brothers or the Charles Perrault version, which is the one everybody kind of knows. So Disney, if you know Disney, the version...
I don't.
Do
Tell me
you
about
know
Disney.
Disney? Yeah, Walt Disney. So if you know the Disney version, it's very simple. Cinderella, father dies after he marries this wicked stepmother. She has 2 evil stepsisters, and she becomes basically the servant of the house. They treat her awfully, and one day the prince decides he's going to have a ball. And so the stepsisters are going to go to the ball, and so is the stepmother.
A ball to find a wife.
Yes, exactly. So basically what ends up happening is that they leave Cinderella, but because she is like wholesome and loving, the animals and all of that stuff, come and help her, try and clean and all of that stuff so she can go to the ball. Stepmother doesn't let her still go. So then she cries out for her fairy godmother, who appears, and they turn her dress into a beautiful dress, turns a pumpkin and the mice into a carriage and horses, and she's whisked off to the ball where she meets the prince. They fall in love, but she has to return at midnight in order to ensure that the spell doesn't disappear before anybody sees her.
Yeah.
So
But as the clock is striking, she's still running down the stairs and her shoe falls off. She turns to grab it, but no, her pumpkin carriage is turning back. She's got to go.
Oh, okay.
And she leaves her shoe.
Yeah. I was gonna get to that.
It's more dramatic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you gonna nay? It's gonna
Nay, we say.
So she leaves a glass slipper that she's wearing, and the prince decides that he's gonna go find this woman who wears the slipper. He tries on the shoe to everybody, even the wicked stepsisters, and then finally he finds Cinderella, who it fits on her shoe, and they live happily ever after.
But they tried to stop her because they knew it was Cinderella's shoe, but the mices and birds let her out.
Okay.
The Mises.
Yes. Okay.
I love the Disney version of Cinderella. It's the only Disney movie I like.
Well, that's the very nice happily ever after version that the French have. Now we're going to get to the German version, which is hardcore metal. Let's go. Anyways, the name of that is Aschenputtel, which I think means
I did that in my pants earlier.
So, also, side note, I didn't think about this, but Cinderella, or the little Cinder Girl, I assume that means she was probably like a chimney sweep or...
Mm-hmm. It was because she slept near the cinders of the fireplace, so she would be covered in the ash of the cinders. So that's where Cinderella came from in the Charles Perrault version.
I like them dirty.
Which is the Disney version, so everybody kind of knows that one.
Yeah.
The Grimm brothers really got their name with this one. So the original story is that a plague infests a village, and a wealthy gentleman's wife ends up dying and leaving basically at the deathbed of this woman. She tells her daughter to be wholesome and loving and, just be a good person.
Yeah.
So as she dies, the little girl is grieving for her mother. So the dad is like, you know what? In my man brain, it makes a lot of sense. Let me go marry somebody else so she can have a mom. Well, it turns out the mom is kind of a bitch and her two daughters are a bitch. So basically what ends up happening is it's kind of the same premise with the original Charles Perrault version where they treat her awfully. Even her father treats her awfully. And one day when the dad does not die in this version. The dad decides that he's going on a trip. So the first stepsister asks for beautiful clothes. Yeah. The second stepsister asks for beautiful jewelry. And the only thing Aschenputtel asks for is the first twig of the branch that knocks your hat off. So as he's traveling, his hat gets knocked off, so he gets the twig and brings it back. It's I believe it's like a holly twig of some sort. So she plants it and she waters it with her tears, and she waters it over the grave of where her mother was buried. So the tree grows, and the tree turns out to be a magical tree. The birds end up helping her, and they basically say, "We will give you whatever you need. Just we will take care of you." Exactly. So it's a hazel twig. Let me rephrase that. So, turns out a little bit later, the prince is deciding that he's going to have a ball for 3 days where he's going to meet all of the women in the land so he can get married. So, Cinderella or Aschenputtel asks to be able to go to the ball as well, and her stepmother basically says, "You cannot go to the ball unless you clean up these lintels." She spills lintels all over the ground. You have to clean it up within a certain amount of time. Well, she asked for the help of the birds from the tree.
Yeah, because it's a pretty impossible task.
Yeah, it's a lot of, it's almost impossible in the time that she's given. And so she ends up cleaning it up with the assistance of these birds. Well, the stepmother gets mad and is like, okay, do it again. And she does twice as many lintels in half the time, but she still does it. So finally, the stepmother's like, hey, no, bitch, you can't go. So Cinderella, or Aschenputtel, who's still very upset about it, the gentleman and his wife and the two stepdaughters go off to this ball. Aschenputtel goes to the tree and says, I want to, she says this poem basically that asks for her to be able to be the most beautiful and go to this ball. So the tree and these birds appear with this beautiful dress, and she dresses in this dress, goes to the ball. The prince sees her, dances with her all night. As soon as it's time for her to leave, he tries to walk her home, and she's like, I gotta peace out. So she crawls into a pigeon keep to hide. And so the prince tells the gentleman, hey, can you find this, this woman that crawled into your pigeon keep? He goes and looks, she's not there, and he thinks it's his daughter, but when he goes and checks, his daughter is by the fireplace where he had left her. So that's the first night. The second night, she asks for an even more beautiful dress and beautiful jewelry and goes to the ball, dances with the prince, and he's like, oh shit, this is the woman I want to be with forever, blah, blah, blah. But when he walks her home again, even though she's insisting on not him walking her home, she crawls into a tree and hides. And so when the gentleman comes back again, the prince tells him to chop down the tree. they chop down the tree. She's not there. So the gentleman is still a little confused, but he finds his daughter by the fireplace still. On the third night, she asks for an even more beautiful dress. Same thing happens, but this time the prince was smart and put what was called pitch down on the stairs, so she couldn't escape.
It's like tar.
Yeah, he was like, you can't leave. Got to stay here. I'm not letting you escape because you did it twice already. So she still manages to escape, but leaves her glass slipper, just like in the original story. So she escapes. Prince gets the slipper, and he tells everybody he's going to find this beautiful woman and marry her. So as he's traveling around, he gets to the house where Aschenputtel lives with her stepsisters. Here's where it gets all fucky.
Yeah, I know this part.
Here it goes. So the stepmother, they try on the oldest stepdaughter tries on is about to try on the shoe, but realizes her big toe is too big. So her mother says, cut your big toe off because when you're queen, you don't have to walk. So cuts off her toe, slips the slipper on. It fits. Amazing, because you cut your damn toe off. So the prince starts to whisk her away in the carriage, and then he realizes that the slipper is filling up with blood, and he's like, you weirdo, you just cut off your toe. So he brings it back, and the younger stepsister also is going to try it on, but realizes her heel is also too big. So stepmother, in the smartest sense, of course, because this worked the first time, says, hey, when you're queen, you're not going to need to be able to walk, so cut your heel off. Cuts the heel off, same thing happens, blood fills with the slipper. So then the prince then asks, is there anybody else in the house? And the gentleman, which is surprising because this is not how it goes in the original, says there's nobody else in the home. That is my daughter. However, later they find out about Aschenputtel, who is the other daughter in the home. Tries on the shoe. It fits perfectly, whisks her off. Now, happily ever after. However, there's still another part to this story where the stepsisters who are so wicked and jealous, even though they are not invited to the wedding, they still decide they're going to attend. The prince and Aschenputtel get so pissed off, they send the birds to peck out the eyes of the sisters.
Nice.
The end. So basically, there's variations of these stories throughout history. This is the fuckiest one, I'll be honest with you, because it's basically like, greed and all of that stuff will only get you so far in life. It's, it's a story about a rags to riches story, but it's about how if you're a selfless person, basically what ends up happening is, good things will happen to you. So, yeah, that was Cinderella.
And there is a variant of that one where the tree that she hides in is the holly tree. And when they cut it down, they cut down that magical holly tree. Yeah. And then the birds peck her eyes out because she betrayed the tree.
Also, you think you'd notice a glass shoe filling up with blood pretty quickly.
I was about to say, it was...
Also, it never mentions that he cleaned it out from the first sister. So
yeah.
Everyone's like, hey, here's a shoe full of blood. Let me jam my foot into it.
But here's a bloody shoe.
Lubricated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because it's like the stepmother is like, hey, you know what? It didn't work the first time. Second time's the charm.
Let me name my other daughter.
Also,
right.
I don't understand where the prince is at during all this because, she's going to try the shoe on. It's not going to fit. She's like, hold on, let me get some tools.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
And goes and gets a hatchet. It's like,
I gotta go.
fit
Hold on,
now.
I gotta go take a shit. Give me 1 second.
ladies don't poop.
Like, nobody in this story is real bright.
Red Riding Hood did.
She flat out told that wolf she was gonna shit.
The second you put it in, I'm shitting.
Everywhere. It's gonna be a mess.
You know what? The cannibalized stew is not sitting well on my stomach.
It's one of those oily poops.
Grandma was old meat. Her meat was too old.
Well, it is always funny because it's like,
your butthole.
Honestly, it feels like sometimes the Grimm brothers, it's the same with Snow White where they don't skip a whole chunk of story that they probably should have made sense. And then instead of it's just like, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. But it is from 1890.
Yeah, people are fucking stupid back then.
Not only that, but I wonder how much we've actually lost in translation over the years.
Oh,
because
probably.
These stories have been changed probably 6 or 7 times since 1812 when they were first collected.
Yeah.
And they were German, and it was a completely different time. And they're not all German. Some of them are Austro-Prussian, and it's the things that make sense to them that they would have understood, we probably don't.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even the synonyms and the the fae and the tree may have meant something very specific for them that
right.
What do we care about?
Yeah.
It was just, it's one of those things where you read the story and you're like, okay, I can see it's, crying tears to grow a tree and all that stuff. Okay, beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they're going to cut their feet off. Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, you look at it here, 50 years from now, people are going to look back and be like, what the hell were they talking about? No cap. What does that mean? Like,
Right.
all the TikTok language, no one's going to have a clue what the shit was going on in the
WAP?
2020s. Like, what?
I'm confused by this WAP.
It's idiocracy come to life, and no one's going to understand any of it.
No.
Oh, fuck, TikTok's our folklore.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really look at it, like, sociologists are going to look back at this time and be like, were they all drunk? All the time?
Yes.
Kinda.
Sort of.
I mean, it was not a great time to be living.
But again, our stories now may not make sense to people. They'll get kind of the gist of it.
Yeah.
But I wonder how much of that we've lost over the past 200 years from Grimm. Like,
True.
probably a lot.
Well, Chris, you want to finish us out with a wholesome story?
Sure, mine's not awful. It's just, it was always one of my favorites because it's just so randomly weird, and it's Rumpelstiltskin. As the story goes, a long, long time ago in a land far away, the king was making his way through the countryside, and back in the day, if the king came to your town, you went and said hi. Like, that's just kind of...
That's how you did it.
It wasn't more of a request so much as a demand of the kingdom. Like, you had to come welcome the king. Well, as he's in this town, there's a miller, which somebody that mills wheat or corn or some sort of grain, and he's talking to the king, and he's like, King, you wouldn't believe how beautiful my daughter is, how talented she is, yet she has the ability to take a spinning wheel and spin straw into gold. And the king, pretty interested in this ability, is like, awesome, bring her to the castle tomorrow, I'd like to see this. The miller, who no longer has a choice in the matter, because once the king, who has been ordained by God, says it, you have to do it, or they will just kill everybody. Like, there is no disobeying the king back then. And as a little side note, the original translation, they think that he wasn't telling the king that she could necessarily physically spin straw into gold. What they think he was trying to say was that she's so beautiful that when she stands in the sunlight, her hair, it glistens like gold. It shines like gold. Versus when it's in dark and it's just kind of yellowy. But the king thought, legit straw into gold.
The king made his own interpretation, and you got to follow what the king says.
And yeah, he's ordained by God. You cannot argue with him. His word is bond, yo. So, the next morning, Miller takes his daughter to the king. King puts her in a room with a little bit of straw and a spinning wheel. And he says, I need you to spin all this straw into gold. It needs to be done by morning. And if it's not, I will have you murdered, beheaded specifically. And she says, okay, because what do you say at that point? Okay. He closes the door. She instantly drops to her knees and starts bawling because there's no other option. She can't actually turn straw into gold. She's crying, she's praying, she's freaking out. A few minutes later, the door opens and a small, ugly, imp, man-type person walks in. And he's like, yo, what's the probs? She explains the situation to him. She's like, I'm supposed to turn the straw into gold. I cannot. He says, hey, I'll do it if you give me your ring, because he likes shiny things. She says, sure. Little man sits down at the spinning wheel, 3 spins, turns a bushel of the straw into gold. Easy peasy. Spins all that straw into gold and leaves. Just leaves the room, opens the door, walks out, which she also apparently could have done, but did not for whatever reason. This is neither here nor...
And she's like, wait, the door was unlocked the entire time?
Yeah, no.
I better just stay here and wait.
No part of this story does he magically appear. He just walks in and then leaves, like she can do. Anyway, he spins the straw into gold. King comes back the next morning, looks at all his gold. He's like, that is fucking awesome.
Wait, this is amazing.
He's like, that's fantastic. I have a gift for you. Takes her into a larger room, also filled with straw and a spinning wheel. He's like, also, I'm going to need you to turn all this straw into gold. Or I'll murder you.
We're beheading.
She says, okay. He leaves, shuts the door, walks out. She instantly starts crying again. Because, again, she can't do this. She's freaking out again. Little man walks in, says, hey, what's the problem? She's like, I have to turn all this straw into gold, and I cannot. And he's like, I'll do it for you if you give me your necklace. And she's like, you can gladly take my necklace. And it's the last bit of jewelry or anything of worth she has, but better to have nothing and be alive, I guess.
True.
What good's a necklace if you have no head?
Absolutely.
I was just thinking that.
Little man sits down at the spinning wheel, whir, spins all the straw into gold. Mm-hmm. Gets up, gets the job done, takes the necklace, walks out the door. takes off. Goes to wherever
This stupid bitch right here, just sitting in there.
This time there is actually no door. He just walks in and out.
Wherever little ugly imp men go. I don't know.
To the bar.
Some sort of hole. Anyway, King comes in there and he's like, holy shit, that's a lot of gold. All right, I have one more gift for you. And he takes her into a huge chamber full of gold, full of straw.
I feel like he needs to learn the definition of gift.
Yeah, the gift definition is not meeting its requirements.
The king's not cool.
Yeah.
And this is a huge, huge room full of gold, or full of straw. And he's like, I need all this turned into gold. And if you don't, I'm going to kill you. But if you do, I'll marry you. And to us, that seems like a weird thing. But back in the day, for a commoner to marry the king, insanity. And this is a miller's daughter. These are not people of means. This is not a thing that happened. Like, this is impossible. So to us, it's like, he's kind of forcing her to marry him. I kind of think she'd have been okay with it back then, because most of them, that was their dream, was to get royal, like get into royalty and not have to till away in the fields forever. Like, it's just a nightmare of an existence. He locks her in, or closes the door to the chamber. Didn't even lock her in. He just closes the door. It's the dumbest. Anyway. just leave. So he closes her in. She starts crying again. The little imp man comes back, and he's like, hey, what's going on? She's like, I have to turn all of this straw into gold, and I really can't. And he's like, oh, what else do you have to offer? So I'll do all the work for you. And she didn't have anything. Like, literally nothing left other than the clothes on her back. And he's like, okay, I will make you a deal. I will spin all this straw into gold in exchange for your firstborn child. And, I mean, again, she doesn't have a lot of foresight, and she's going to be murdered if she doesn't. So she's like, absolutely. He spins all the straw into gold, takes his leave. King comes back next morning, looks around, is like, yep, I'm marrying this one. They get married. A year passes. She's forgotten about the little man that turned the straw into gold, which seems like a thing you wouldn't forget about, but somehow she does.
Yeah.
I would think about it like every night, like, you remember that time that weirdo just showed up and spun a bunch of gold?
That weirdo showed up and saved my life thrice, and then made me
and
one
what
of
about the king who never expected more straw into gold? Like, she's my wife now.
Well, that, and, I mean, realistically, depending on how much she spun, he may not have needed any more.
Yeah.
Again, the first room, second room was bigger, and the third room was some sort of chamber filled with straw. That's a lot of gold.
Yeah.
That's a whole lot of gold. Well, she has forgotten all about the little man and the arrangement for the firstborn. Her and the king are married. It's been a good year. She falls pregnant. She's, with child. She gives birth to the baby. And the moment the baby is put into her hands, the little imp man walks in and says, hey, I'd like my baby now.
That's mine.
Yeah.
She tries to bargain with him. And she's like, no, I want to keep him. I'll give you a bunch of gold and jewels and whatever you want. And the little imp man, and this part's interesting to me, he responds to her. He's like, I have no use for shiny things. The living are more important to me.
Yeah. Because the reason he had taken her ring and necklace because it meant something to her.
Yeah, he didn't care about it.
He wants what means the most to you.
Yeah, because now she's the king's wife. She has all this with no...
It was like her mom's jewels and the last she had left. So he just wants what you want.
And not only that, he can turn things into gold. Why does he care if you give him gold? He doesn't need it.
It's like a hag. They want something that means something to you. They don't want to take...
She should have been like, why don't you just kill my husband?
Yeah. Oh, he means so much to me.
I love him so much.
So much.
Anyway, so he's like, no, I want the child. And she starts bawling because that has worked for her 3 times in the past, apparently, with this little dude. And he takes pity on her for all her crying for some unknown reason. And says, all right, I'm going to give you 3 days. If in 3 days you can guess my name, I'll let you keep the child. And she says a deal. And then he takes off. And he's like, I'll be back tomorrow night. She sends all of her couriers out into town. And is like, hey, I need you to collect all the townsfolk's name. All of them. And bring them back. And they say, okay. So they go collect as many names as they can get. They come back. The little imp man comes back. And he's like, can you guess my name? And she names just all the normal names I find. Calvin, Chris, James, Bobby, Robert, like everything. And he's like, nope. She doesn't get there. And he's like, okay, well, I'll see you tomorrow night. Good luck. Takes off again. She sends the couriers out, and she's like, look, I need you to collect all the names, like everything. I don't care if it's crazy or weird or whatever. And the couriers are like, okay, we'll do what we can. They go into town, collect even more names, bring them back to her. Little imp man comes back the second night, and he's like, okay, can you guess my name? and she starts naming a lot of the more obscure names, which some of them are weird. Like I think one's like Mutton Hook and Breadwater, and a lot of it they're named after foods. It's really strange, but a lot of weird names, and it's old German names, so it may have meant something different, but they sound really strange. Even all the weird names, he's like, nothing. And he's like, okay, I'll see you tomorrow night. Good luck guessing my name.
Taking my baby with
Yeah. So he leaves. She calls the couriers in there, and she's like, look, I really need this guy's name. And they're like, we have collected every name of everybody in the kingdom. Like,
They just have like an ancient census, basically.
yeah, there are no more names, and she doesn't know what to do. And then one of her couriers is like, well, the other day when I was going out looking for names, I was traveling through a pass in the mountains, and I saw a small little imp man who was dancing around a fire, singing a strange little song that was, they couldn't write songs back in the day, but basically like the gist of it is, in the morning the baby will be mine because they'll never guess my name is Rumpelstiltskin. That's the song.
Yeah, that's definitely what you would sing when you're trying to hide your name.
So
that's like a true villain, like an anime villain. Like, let me lay out my plan for you so you can use it against me.
Basically, he's like, neener, neener, neener.
So she is thrilled that they've guessed his name, or they found his name. He comes back the third night. He's like, do you have my name? And she falsely guesses on purpose, like, Steven. And he's like, no. And she goes,
Brad Pitt.
yeah, whoever. Greg. And he's like, still not me, bitch.
I'm old Greg.
And she finally goes, Rumpelstiltskin. And he gets irate. He starts jumping around and screaming and steaming. And
it's horrifying.
Yeah. He screams, the devil told you my name. All this kind of crazy. Like, he is irate. And then he stomps his left foot down so hard that it sinks into the earth. The story is either it sunk just into the earth or it went all the way to hell. And it's most of them where his left foot went all the way to hell. He grabs his right foot after the left one sunk to hell and rips himself in half and dies right there. And,
That seems aggressive.
That's the end of the story.
That seems fucking
He
aggressive.
rips himself in twain after she guesses his name, and he screams, the devil told you my name, and then dies. That's it. Happily ever after.
Sure.
So there's actually like a whole lot of that style of story that are all, I don't know if you would consider them fairy tales or folk tales or just kind of a combination of the two. But there's one where a girl breaks a spinning wheel, a small imp, another ugly, they call him an ugly dwarf, stops by to help her, and he says he can fix it if she'll marry him, and she has to get it fixed or something bad will happen. So she says yes. He fixes her wheel, and so the imp is like, the dwarf man is well known around town. Like, people know him. They don't know his name, but they know because he's helpful. Like, he'll come by and help you fix your fence. The problem is he's bottom naked all the time. He wears a shirt but no pants. Or
It's Winnie the Pooh.
yeah, but he's got everything hanging.
Oh, nice.
But people are just like, well, he's so helpful. Like,
Yeah.
I guess if I gotta look at this dwarf wiener.
What the fuck?
Is he a tripod?
I couldn't tell you. They don't go into detail about how his wiener is.
Uh-huh.
But he does tell the girl, if you can guess my name, you won't have to marry me. And her brother, apparently, at some point in this story, sees him out in a field dancing around.
Wiener flopping?
I mean...
He's probably
His name is Wiener flopping.
He's just copper cocking.
Well,
like,
he's like, I'm going to have a wife because no one knows my name is Double Turk. And so the brother's like, I think his name is Double Turk. So
that's probably because his penis is big.
So she guesses his name is Double Turk, and he just disappears. Like, not even angry, just poof.
He just like walks out like swinging his dick like ba ba da ba ba ba.
What's my name? Say my name. Say my name.
But there are a ton of those style of stories where
Destiny's Child was Double Turk.
the antagonist won't tell you their name, but they always end up saying it or singing it, and someone overhears them, and then they tell the protagonist.
Kind of like the way demons are supposedly.
Yeah, they have to
Yeah.
tell you.
Yeah, and
well,
you,
the thing is,
you
like,
dispel them with their name.
yeah. Well, I wonder, like, and again, because I think a lot has been lost in translation with Rumpelstiltskin, that it feels so weird to us. But, like, to them, like, him slamming his foot so hard it goes into the earth all the way to hell and ripping himself in twain probably meant something else to them than it does to us. To me, it's just like, well, that's a horrifying scene in front of a a new mother and her baby and just ripping yourself in half to where like your entrails fall out. And
Yeah.
like that's it. Like he just killed himself right there, and that's where the story ends. Like there's no happy ending. There's not even a moral in that story other than keep your mouth shut if you got a secret. Like
Well, and a lot of stories, which is funny because there is that like devil aspect to it, but a lot of stories where involve fey creatures and anything to that extent. The power of their name is what gives them their power. So if you know their name, you basically have power over them. So it's almost like he knew that with her knowing his name, she would have power over him.
Well, I wonder if because the first thing he started screaming when she said it was the devil told you that. If at some point he hadn't made a deal with the devil, and that was something that would have resonated with people in the late 1700s, early 1800s, lower Germany, whatever. Like it played into other tales that were similar. Like they understood that like he thought maybe she had also made a deal with the devil because she made the deals with him. Like, or
he was hiding from the devil.
Yeah,
and now the devil found him.
Yeah, because when he stomped his left foot, he went all the way to hell.
Yeah,
and ripped right up the middle. But
and some of the stories where he's dragged down.
Yeah, it's really strange. But I wonder like if he wasn't given the ability to like, because he does have basically magic powers, like he can turn straw into gold, if he didn't trade his soul or whatever for that, under the presumption that like, first person learns your name though, I'm coming to collect from the big man downstairs. Like,
well, this is a good lesson for you not to be dancing around saying your name.
So you know
all
all this, you're like neener.
It's like he's the OG anime villain.
No, he's O.J. Simpson.
Or he's O.J. Simpson.
I mean, he did rip him.
If the name don't fit,
you must acquit.
You must give your baby over.
But yeah, and I think about a lot of these because when you actually think about like fairy tales and folk tales, they're all really, really odd. But I wonder if they're odd to us, but I wonder if they were odd to the older generations that either came up with them or told them, or because most of them were oral traditions from 500-600 years ago, if they were so odd to them,
right? Or
if they were not like stories of hope, like Cinderella marrying the prince and then all the evil being dealt with. That's kind of a classic human thing, is you want good to prevail and evil to be punished.
Right. And being selfless is something that you should persevere. You would want to be, other than being selfish.
But then you get into like Rumpelstiltskin, where there's no redeeming qualities
to any of these people.
Yeah, the king just married her because she could make him rich, and they had a baby.
And she lied about it.
Yeah.
And like made a deal and then went back on her deal.
Well, the thing is, like, she never lied. Her father got her into this. I don't know if, like, so Rumpelstiltskin, like, she never really had any say in the matter from the get-go. Her dad got her into this.
Yeah.
And then never had anything else to do with the story. Other than now his daughter's king, or queen, and he's probably super rich.
Right.
She never lied to the king or Rumpelstiltskin until he came to collect, and she just didn't want to give up her baby since he was there to pick it up the moment it was placed in her arms.
Right.
Which I get. Like, if you're a new mom, like, you're probably not just going to be like, here.
And he didn't have to make the deal with her.
Yeah. He literally saved her 3 times, and then she was like...
And then the 4th as well.
I really don't want to live up to my end of the bargain. Yeah. And he still gave her an out.
Yeah.
And I wonder if he had to. Like, if part of his...
Like, his negotiated terms always has to be, you can guess my name.
Yes.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun little trip down fairy tale lane and learning how fucked up our childhoods were.
Well, I think Rumpelstiltskin is horrifying.
Rumpelstiltskin was always the one that scared me anyway, so it wasn't like it was shocking that it was scary, but it's the fact that like there was no real redeeming quality. There was really...
And when he loses his shit, he
goes bananas. But I think if he knows it's over, you're going to kind of freak out too. Like and I wonder if there's like, and I've tried to do some research and I don't know ancient German folk tales, but like there has to be some sort of backstory towards like the imps or people that have made deals with the devil, to where when it ends, it's real bad.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Crossroads stories now of like old Southern Gothic like you make a deal with the devil and you're gonna die. So it's like that's sort of the lesson you have to learn.
I think Ghost Rider.
True. I was thinking Ghost Writer, like a writer.
No, I'm talking about Nick Cage.
Oh, I understand.
I'm thinking about Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, that too.
I was thinking of Robert Johnson, who wrote a lot of the old blues songs about meeting the devil at the crossroads.
That's Oh Brother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
He meets him at the devil at this crossroads. He taught me to play this guitar real good.
He made the guitar real good. But yeah, I quite enjoyed fairy tales. It was a think it was a good story time for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
A little educational, a little fucked up, just like we are.
I just like doing the research. Like, it's really those sort of things. Like the oral traditions are really interesting to me because you get to see how people how they thought and what morals they placed on certain things and what they thought was important versus what they didn't.
Well, and that's why I'm such a huge fan of folklore in general, because it's not that just the oral traditions of the stories, but how similar the oral traditions of stories are throughout the world.
Yeah, everywhere.
Like there's not a huge difference in stories. You see a lot of the origin stories are all the same, even up to where you have written traditions. Yeah. So, it's just interesting to see that throughout the world, all of these fairy tales, even though we've kind of simplified them, especially with the Disney versions, how different, but how similar they are with different sort of lessons that need to be learned.
That, and you look at, like, historically, most civilizations had a great deluge fable or myth.
Yep.
Like the Great Flood, the Mesopotamians had it, Christians had it. Everybody had one. The Native Americans had it. The Inuits had it. It's just one of those things that is worldwide because there probably was, and floods are a natural thing that are worldwide. So they had,
it's symbolic for washing away your sins, and it is symbolic about washing away and starting anew. So
it's really cool.
Okay, I knew that Rumpelstiltskin had a meaning, and it means like little rattling stilts. And it was what the goblins would do, and they would show up, they would rattle stuff, like, they're the original poltergeist. So he was a poltergeist.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Nothing terrifying about that.
Not even a little bit.
But, yeah.
Except I'm scared. I'm really scared. This thing scared me.
I mean, to be fair, I feel like these episodes have encompassed a lot of what this podcast is. Educational, kind of fucked up, and a lot of shit and penis jokes.
It's good fun.
And Rumpelstiltskin is probably the oldest one we discussed because Rumpelstiltskin predates all of these. Yeah. Like, this is a really old, like talking 4,000-year-old tale.
Yeah, it's really...
Like, it's one of the oldest we know about.
And it hasn't really changed that much for 4,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what interests me is there's parts of it that are weird to us, but I wonder if they were weird to those people. Like, if they understood the meaning behind it.
Well, and that's the thing is, even if you look at, like, Cinderella, like, hey, you took a sandal and dropped it into the King of Egypt's shoe. Like, that's a little strange. But you know what? I guess it's like the beauty inside of you will get you riches or something.
Well,
to that
and you
effect.
look at, like, Cleopatra and the Greeks and the Egyptians had a connection back then anyways. Mm-hmm. So to us it seems strange, but to them it was probably like just going down the road.
Yep.
Like it was another colony. Yeah. And it'd be like us inserting, like, a bald eagle into a story. We'll understand that they're trying to say, like, America is strong. America. Whatever. 1,000 years from now, they may be like, why'd they pick a bald eagle?
Yeah.
Like, what's that bird mean?
Yeah, what is that bird even?
And they may not even think it means anything. They just put a bird in there.
Yeah.
So, like, the hazel tree may mean something.
Right.
That doesn't mean anything to us.
I'm going to insert something in one of these stories.
And there we are.
I didn't say what it was. Get your mind out of the fucking gutter.
Well, if you're double turking, it's probably what we think it is. Double turking and you're jerking.
Hey, Becky.
Huh?
Where can they find us double turking?
Can they find us in a mountain pass laughing, dancing, saying our names?
That would say my name, say my name.
If no one is around
me, say me alone.
That's all I
thought Rumpelstiltskin was here.
I don't know that song. So.
You can find us not in a mountain pass with our names being danced around because that's doxing.
Bobby obviously pterodactyling.
Yeah.
Really, Rumpelstiltskin is the first original doxing story.
Oh, fuck.
Right.
He doxed himself.
He doxed himself.
Yeah.
500 IQ that. You can find us on Facebook at The Free Rotation Podcast. You can
Pornhub.
find us not on Pornhub. You can find us on Twitter at The Free Rotation. You can also find us on Twitch and YouTube at The Free Rotation playing wholesome content.
You porn.
I'm such a liar. You can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, Google, everywhere you can find your favorite podcast. We're also affiliates of Weeby Geeks. Check out all the great podcasts at WeebyGeeksPC.com. And you can check out our backlog at TheFreeRotation.com.
Nation.com.
And we're making a TikTok.
Andrew's decided we're going to make
TikToks. We're like
TikToks.
5 years late to the party, but we're doing it.
Time to get tick-tarded.
Yeah. I really want to make a little Nas X.
Can we change
We're going to be in a mountain pass saying our names and call me in the morning. Is that Rumpelstiltskin? Oh,
can we change our name to the Free Rotation Nation of Islam?
No.
We're going to have to nope that.
Do you know where we live? They're going to firebomb this home.
Nope.
True.
Yeah. Our studio, quote unquote.
will be burned to the ground.
Nope. I have a really good idea for a TikTok.
Is it Assalamu alaikum?
What?
Yeah.
What? Okay, bye.
I kind of think mine's a little funny.
I like yours too. Listen, that little Nas X thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it just amuses the shit out of me. All right. Peace out.
We love y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
There's some people in this house.